Overfishing is a major problem in today's world. Issues such as bottom trawling destroy the environment and decrease biodiversity. Tragic. 38.5 million tons of bycatch result from overfishing each year. The EU is the world's primary importer of fish. In the Northeast Atlantic and nearby seas, 39% of fish stocks are classified as overfished. In 2013, around 93 million tons of fish were caught worldwide. And today, each person eats about 20 kilograms of fish a year. That's twice as much as 50 years ago.
To understand the major problems of overfishing, first we must understand what overfishing actually is. What is overfishing? Overfishing is catching too many fish for the ecosystem to support, which leads to an overall degradation to the ecosystem and the organisms which live there. Overfishing is an unsustainable use of the oceans.
A bottom trawl is a type of fishing net that's pulled along the seafloor. Fishermen commonly use bottom trawls to catch shrimp and bottom-dwelling fish like halibut and sole. In addition to these target fish, however, the nets also catch a variety of ocean life that's usually thrown back dead or dying. Dragging heavy gear across the seabed can also damage sensitive seafloor habitat. Reducing the harmful effects of bottom trawling requires either modifying the fishing gear or limiting the areas where trawling is allowed to protect sensitive bottom-dwelling organisms and their habitat.
Worldwide, fishing fleets are 2 to 3 times as large as needed to take present-day catches of fish and other marine species, and as what our oceans can sustainably support. On a global scale, we have enough fishing capacity to cover at least 4 Earth-like planets. On top of the overcapacity, many fishing methods are unsustainable in their own way. These methods have a large impact on the basic functioning of our marine ecosystems. These unselective fishing practices cause tremendous destruction on non-target species. Controversial and problematic practices like bycatch and bottom trawling destruction are 2 examples of these. It's not only the fish that are affected by fishing. As we are fishing down the food web, there is an increasing effort needed to catch something of commercial value, like marine mammals, sharks, and seabirds. Even non-commercially viable fish species in the web of marine biodiversity are overexploited, killed as bycatch and discarded, or threatened by the industrialized fisheries. Scientists agree that at current exploitation rates, many important fish stocks will be removed from the system within 25 years.
Controversies in overfishing do not come from the actual overfishing, but from the regulations of overfishing and who has the right to say what the rules are. For example, in the late 1970s and early 1980s, Alaska had a major problem with overfishing because they did not have any strong regulations against it. It seemed as if Alaska had an unending supply of red king crab, but when nearly drove to extinction, the Alaskan government and people began to wonder what happened to their surplus. Another controversy with overfishing is that are the rules already made valid and effective enough to make the effects of overfishing minimal to none? The answer in most cases is no. In Evolution Explosion, Palumbi states that most of the crabs and other animals fished out of the waters are of minimal size according to the law. This size is not even the size that animals need to be to do things such as reproduce, causing the population of a species to decrease, possibly to extinction.
The lack of regulations and specific policy created by the government, and the fact that fishing has been an industry tied to the history of humans and civilization, many groups, like the World Wildlife Fund, are helping countries learn to prepare adequate and effective management protocols. Because fishing is a crucial industry in many poor and developing nations, conservation efforts are focusing on helping these areas set up procedures to ensure sustainability in the long run. Another way that conservationists are trying to change the problem of overfishing is by working with retailers to educate them on ways to purchase their seafood from sustainable fisheries. The hope is that by building support for the cause on this level, more pressure will be put on fisheries to comply with those standards. Many governments subsidize the fishing industry with subsidies in an effort to keep the industry thriving. The problem with this is that it incentivizes fishermen to continue to expand, which means that subsidies only end up contributing to the main problem of overfishing. Setting up more protected areas in the ocean is an effort to help reduce the effects of overfishing on some of the world's most incredible reefs and marine structures. There are many different solutions that can help stop overfishing. Some of these are working with governments, helping developing nations, educating retailers, reducing subsidies, creating more protected marine areas, creating labels for consumers, and using responsible farming. Many groups are also trying to target consumers to be more aware of the seafood they buy and eat. There are pamphlets and handy guides that help educate consumers about which fish are endangered due to overfishing and which areas of the world fish come from. Many of these, such as the Monterey Bay Aquarium, offer alternative choices of fish that aren't as in danger. When done correctly, farming fish can lead to a sustainable way of providing food and resources to the global population. So far, this practice has seen success with species of fish that are prone to overfishing, such as Arctic char and bass.
Acts and treaties associated with this topic include Law of Sea Convention. The intent of this law was to determine the territories for fishing and other activities. The environmental issue affected is the issue of overfishing. This law should reduce overfishing and allow for a more sustainable supply of fish. Another example is the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Act. The intent of this law is to establish a fish and shellfish policy that is directed towards the industry of fishing. The environmental issues affected include overfishing and the prevention of overfishing in the fishing business as well.
Here are some possible exam questions to test your knowledge about overfishing. What percent of the world's fisheries are currently overexploited or exploited to their fullest capacity? The answer, 80%. In 2015, 80% of worldwide fisheries are either harvested at their fullest capacity or being overexploited. This pattern will reduce sustainable fish harvest over the long run and poses a serious threat to the future of ocean ecosystems and the fishing industry. Which of the following is not a destructive aspect specific to trawling? A. Trawling equipment is dragged along the seafloor, damaging coral reefs and other crucial habitat. B. Species not intended to be caught, such as dolphins, get caught in the nets and often die. C. Drag nets harvest large number of fish on a scale that cannot be done with sustainable pole fishing. The massive rate of harvest is responsible for declining fisheries worldwide. D. Trawling equipment is dragged along the seafloor, kicking up sediment in the process that disturb marine flora and wildlife communities. Or E. Marine animals not intended to be caught get hooked by lines set out to catch target species. The correct answer, E. Trawling employs the use of a large net that is dragged along the ocean floor, but typically no hooks or fishing line is used. A result of driftline fishing, a different harvest method altogether, is that dolphins, sharks, and other species not intended to be caught are caught on hooks and die from it.
How the world can stop overfishing. A case study of U.S. fishery success.
Adjusting for inflation, the U.S. commercial fishery saw dockside earnings increase by 54% as fish stocks around the country recovered. So why did fish stocks recover? What turned an ecological and economic disaster into one of the greatest conservation success stories of all time? the Magnuson-Stevens Act. The goal of the Magnuson-Stevens Act was to create a framework for rebuilding overfished stocks in as short a time as possible. The time frame for rebuilding a fish stock under the Act is typically 10 years or less. By the end of 2015, 89% of fisheries with annual catch limits in place had halted overfishing. In addition to setting catch limits, the law allows regulators to issue permits to fishing vessels, regulate allowable types of fishing gear, and establish zones or time periods that are off limits to fishing. The Act also gives fishers a voice in the appropriation of annual catch limits, safeguarding fleet diversity and coastal livelihoods in the process. Thanks to the regulatory success of the Magnuson-Stevens Act, only 16% of U.S. fish stocks were deemed overfished in 2014, the lowest percentage since NMFS record-keeping began.
Look for the certified sustainable seafood. To find the most sustainable choices, look for products bearing the Marine Stewardship Council's logo. The MSC, a global nonprofit, relies on fishery certification and eco-labeling to raise consumer awareness about the importance of sustainable seafood. To gain certification, a fishery must have sustainable stock levels, demonstrate low environmental impact, and operate under effective management. Buying seafood with the MSC label takes the guesswork out of being an eco-conscious consumer.
You really think the death of fish is funny? No. No.